Good evening. I'd like to call our meeting to order this afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for coming to our council meeting. Please, thank you again for practicing physical social distance. I'll call Pastor Cooley up to our podium, and if you would, Pastor, please lead us in our invocation, and then we'll go right into the prayer.
Okay. The pledge. Let us pray. Gracious and holy God, we thank you so much that you have given us life and love and shown us mercy and grace, and that you have entrusted us with the stewardship of all of your creation, and you have given into our hands care for each other. You remind us each and every day that we are, in fact, our brother's keepers, that we are, in fact, Almighty God, your justice in this world. So we ask your Holy Spirit to be with us, your discernment to be with us, as we learn to lead in the way you would have us to lead, live as you would have us to live, so that all might come to know your presence through our actions. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just as a point for record, Councilman Hinton is actually out tonight. He's having some surgeries, some medical procedures done, and we wish him well. And Councilman Davis informed me early today. I know his unit that he works with is working on some mitigation efforts with our local community health crisis with COVID. So he's working on that through his typical military units that they've been doing across West Alabama. So both those gentlemen will not be in attendance tonight. Mr. McCullum, please call roll.
All right, Councilman Roberts.
Here.
President Logan.
Here.
Councilman Hinton is absent. Councilman Davis is absent. Councilman Hogg.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum, Mr. President.
Item 5, approval of our agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
That's a motion by Councilman Roberts. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hogg. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. McCullum.
Councilman Roberts.
Yes.
President Logan.
Yes.
Councilman Hogg.
Yes.
Carried.
No visitors to address our city council formally. 7A1 is ordinances and resolutions of a permanent nature. We do have a second reading of an ordinance ordering the demolition of an unsafe structure located at 1722 19th Street. Ms. Ram.
Yes, sir. This structure has been found as unsafe and it's dangerous to the public health. Building inspectors are recommending this structure be demolished. All necessary procedures have been followed. The owner has submitted, as of this afternoon, a permit to address some of the repairs. However, these repairs will not address all of the items that are on the inspection report and will not bring the structure up to building code. This does require a public hearing as a second reading.
Thank you, Julie. This also requires a public hearing in regard to that second reading of ordinance. So right now I will open the floor for a public hearing, and I think Mr. Freeman, I think the property owner is here to speak on behalf of this item, 1722 19th Street demolition.
How you doing, President Logan? My name is Lorenzo Freeman. I live at 1504 Juniper Ridge Lane, Northport, Alabama. I got a letter concerning the property from the inspector saying that you all were going to tear it down. I went through and I had a contractor. Some of the things that Ms. Ram named, that's true. And I imagine that when we get into the property that you're going to have to do a lot more things. Only thing I'm concerned about is that the lot is not big enough to build another house there. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. If it were big enough, like I told David, I would tear it down. You know, he wouldn't have to worry me about it. I would, eventually just tear it on down. I'd call the guy to tear it down. But what I'm asking the city for is to give me time to repair the house. Those things that are on the permit that Mrs. Ram has today, it's going to be much more, and I know that. Besides that, tearing the roof off, putting it, back, I don't know if it's going to be a more of a job than what I really want to do. But my concern is that the property lines are not located wide enough to build another structure on there. So I'm asking the council, would you grant me time enough to repair it? And I will, I already applied for a permit. Anything that has to go will be inspected. And anything that David says, I will do it with no problem whatsoever. The only reason it's taking me so long to get up here, I had spine surgery back in December, and I'm just now really getting up. So I'm at your mercy. Let me put it that way. So I don't know anything else other than what I've said to say. Are there any questions?
What kind of time, Mr. Freeman, are we looking at?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I would hope 4 to 5 months to get it done, at least get the structure back up, straighten up, the block work put back under it, and the top fixed and everything, and then go into the inside of it and work. But, with the old house, it's nothing. I can't really just sit here and say, well, I'm going to tear this out and tear that out, because when I tear it out, basically what's going to happen is I'm going to find something in that wall. I'm going to have to call David to look at that so I can tear that out. So I'm just not sure. I would say 4 to 5 months at a minimum.
Julie, when do we file notice of substandard building?
It would have been at least 45 days prior to April the 6th. This was on the council agenda for demolition on April the 6th. That's the meeting that we did not have because we didn't have a quorum. So it would have been at least 45 days prior to that.
In the normal process, even if we condemn the house, there's still 60 to 90 days before that actually goes through, that the owner can still come to you with a full plan, with a start and stop date, or a decision point that something's going to be done, correct?
Correct. The council in the past has given sometimes 30 days to come up with a plan, and then, I don't think the building inspectors would have any issue with issuing a permit, and as long as there's some progressive work being done, I think that would satisfy their requirements.
Mr. Freeman, my problem is that normally when people ask for time with something like this, they have a definitive start, stop date, they've got a plan, everything's laid out. You're going to try and address everything that's there. What my opinion is, because we could get 4 months down the road and you could decide then that it's not going to be done and it's still got to be torn down, so it's another 4 to 5 months in which we haven't voted on it, it's got to be voted on again. Right. So from my standpoint, we can still vote for the condemnation, okay, that stands. You have 30, 60, 90 days, whatever the council's willing to grant, to come up with a definitive plan, not a maybe 4 to 5 months. You've got to bring somebody in. You got to say who you're working with. Everything's got to address on the building permit, and it's got to go through a very thought-out plan. At that point, the city staff can then say, okay, we see progress. We've got a timeline we can match. We understand that you're not always going to be able to address everything. You get, as you say, you get in, you rip a wall out. You may get in there and find out there's no way we're going to put any more money into this thing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We may get into the house and just have to tear it down.
From my opinion, you go ahead and go through the process and allow you to work with the city. I also feel the staff puts a lot of work into condemnations, and there's been a lot more work done by the city on these types of activities. I even turned one in today that needs to be looked at. So I think we have to go the process. We have to show the staff that we're all serious about this process, and then once we follow the process, still allow you to get with the city to meet all of their demands and requirements to allow you to continue forward.
So what you're saying, let me make sure I'm clear on what you're saying, is that I just need to get with Ms. Ram and submit the information that I have.
What I'm saying is that I'm not willing to take the condemnation off the table. I still think the city council votes on it, but then we allow 60 to 90 days for you to have a definitive plan and action being shown, okay? I'm sure the neighbors, that's great that you get a builder, but until you put a dumpster up there and start tearing things down or put the new roof on, the neighbors are all going to be looking, what are you doing?
Well, let me ask you this. Even like now, started now, even with the vote, can I still go ahead and start the work on the house?
You have a
Yeah.
permit already.
You got a permit.
The
Okay.
permit has
Yeah.
been applied for. It hasn't been approved yet. It was just this afternoon, so it hasn't
Yeah.
made its way through all the departments yet. But
And the city, in the cases like this, if you're honestly attempting to do these things, and we need to get an inspector out to do that, I'm sure Ms. Ram and the department will make sure those things happen. You're not gonna be waiting on us,
Okay, I got you, I understand.
okay?
All right, so Mr. Freeman, and I didn't know if council had any further comments on it. We've done this in the past. I know going through the steps, and I appreciate everybody chiming in on it. So really, the request or the recommendation maybe from council, Mr. Freeman, if you're okay with that, is to go forward with the condemnation with the caveats in place that you must have a plan with timelines, working with the staff,
Okay.
to get some definite timelines in order. And then if you get in that thing and it looks like it's just not worth the structure being there, then you'll then work with the city to try to look at tearing it down or moving
Right, I
forward.
mean, I can get it tore down. I was trying to save it, like I
Trying to
said,
yeah.
because of the property line.
Yeah.
And it's an old family home. So, and to be honest with you, I'll tell you the truth. I told David, I said, man, I really would rather tear it down. But when I looked at the property line and see I can't put anything else
Right.
back there,
Right.
then that makes a difference. But don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with tearing it down, other than the lot is not large enough to put another house on there if I did that.
Right.
Well, and that's a whole nother process too. If you decide to tear it down and you plat it, there are processes you can go through for variances on those setbacks that you can request based on what's going there. So it's not like if you tear it down, you're never ever gonna be able to do anything with it. You again can work with the city, explain why that's an older section of town that are probably very small lots. You
They are.
can apply for variances either with ZBA or with PZC to look at offsetting those variances so that you can use the property.
Okay.
I think we all agree, though, is that we don't want what's there now.
I definitely understand that, and I have no problem with that. But I got, like I said, I got caught off guard really with it, and I'm just trying to do the right thing if I can save it,
So I think, Councilman Logan, I would recommend that we would vote for the condemnation, but we would give Mr. Freeman 90 days to address the additional items, but he has to show that he is actually working on what he already is planning on for the permit. You have something else, Julie?
I did. I found the letter, and I wanted to go back and correct those dates. The letter was dated March the 5th, and it was set for the April 20th council meeting, not the April
Okay.
6th.
So, just to make clear, my recommendation is that we follow condemnation. We give you another 90 days to amend your permit, get everything going.
Okay.
What you do have an approved permit for, you either start work to show that you're working towards that, or perhaps you come back and finally say, look, it's too much and we shouldn't do this.
I will.
But in 90 days, I'd like to
Right.
either hear one way or the other that something's going on.
You definitely will hear from me.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I just wanted some time to get started on it, to see, and if it's not gonna work out in 90 days, then I'll come back up here and talk with Ms. Ram, and I'll just get a permit and just have it torn completely down and hauled off clear. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Floor is still open, public hearing regarding this agenda item. All right, seeing no further citizens, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to order the demolition of the unsafe structure located at 1722 19th Street?
I'll make a motion with the provisions for allowing up to 90 days to address the rest of the deficiencies in the permit, with also evidence that he has started on the activities that I assume he would be permitted shortly, Julie?
There will be 90 calendar days from today.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, that is in the form of a motion. I will second that. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. McCullum.
Councilman Roberts,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Hall,
Yes.
Gary.
Second item is a second reading of an ordinance declaring our sales tax holiday or the back-to-school holiday. Again, this holiday will begin at 12:01 July 17th and at 12 midnight on July 19th of 2020. Mr. McGee, again, this is just the normal sales tax holiday we go through every single year. And again, is there a motion to adopt the ordinance amending that section 66-78 and 66-79 establishing the sales tax use holiday in the city of Northport?
I'll make that motion.
That's a motion by Councilman Hogg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Roberts. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. McCullum.
Councilman Roberts,
Yes.
President Logan,
Yes.
Councilman Hogg,
Yes.
motion carried.
New business 8A1, it's a first reading of a conditional use to allow concrete plant including the outdoor storage of machinery and the storage of sand, gravel, and blocks in an M1 located at 2000 30th Avenue. I'll ask on Ms. Ram and Mr. Davis on this one. I think we do. There's been a request to suspend the rules, but prior to that, I know we want to get a synopsis from staff. So, Ms. Ram.
Yes, sir. As you stated, Ballard Concrete does request conditional use approval to operate a concrete plant. That includes the outdoor storage of machinery and the storage of sand, gravel, and blocks. This is in an M1 light industrial zone. The proposed location is 2000 30th Avenue. Concrete plants are defined they are listed as a defined use in the zone. However, the outdoor storage of machinery and the storage of the sand, gravel, and blocks are only allowed by conditional use approval. The case went before the Planning Commission last week on May the 12th. The motion that was made by the commission was to recommend approval to the council with the following conditions. And those conditions are that the conditional use be limited to the footprint that already exists, that is already permitted through ADAM, and with the condition that an established truck route would be used, and that truck route be determined by the city engineer and the public works director. That motion did fail. It was a 3-3 tie vote. So this comes with, I don't know if negative recommendation is the correct term, but it does not come with a favorable recommendation. As with any conditional use, the city council can place additional requirements on the request. And also that the applicant has requested of staff that the council suspend the rules in order to consider this immediately tonight. And I think Mr. Davis has a couple of comments to add about the procedures on that.
Yes, we do need to have a public hearing if you do decide to suspend the rules. You need a unanimous vote to suspend the rules. And since there are only 3 council members here, you'd need a unanimous vote to pass this, or it would fail. I know that the site is going to be located on the very south part of the property next to Dogan Steel. I think this is like a 7-acre site, and it's the building itself is very small. That's where the EPA permit is located, and that was one of the things that was discussed this past Tuesday night with the planning and zoning. I think I mentioned to you earlier one potential truck route, which is if they turn out of the area on 30th, turn left, and then they would have to go north on Main to US 82. Another possibility, or an alternate route that was discussed, is turn south on 30th, go to 5th, and then have to turn west on 5th until they go around by the airport and go up to 82 in that direction. Both of those truck routes would prevent them from going through downtown Northport, would keep them out of the intersection of 5th and Main. So the conditions that were discussed at the planning and zoning meeting were the location, which will be on the far south end of the property, away from the buffer of trees at the north end of the property, and those 2 truck routes. And this would include whether or not the concrete trucks were loaded or empty. It would also include the trucks bringing materials to the site, because they would have control over that. Those, whether they were empty or loaded, they would go one of those 2 routes. So that would be both for egress and ingress, and both loaded and empty for the materials coming in and the concrete going out.
And Mr. President, also we had one citizen who has contacted me and maybe a couple other staff members that is in opposition to this. During the planning commission stage of this case, he did send some emails, correspondence that were read to the planning commission that was in opposition.
I do know we do have a citizen that may be representing, maybe Ballard, I think, want to come and speak. But before we do, and thank you, Julie and Ron, for that. I want to make sure before we get started in the suspending of the rules, and of course it's got to be unanimous. Just for clarification, M1, it's located in M1, but the conditional use based on the last planning and zoning meeting on the 12th, Councilman Roberts, basically, I guess it was denied or unfavorable. It's 3-3.
The specific conditional use clauses were not approved.
Yeah. So, but M1, you can't get around it, but the specific conditional use was in the last meeting 3-3, which basically did not pass.
Correct, because the other items are already allowed in M1.
Already allowed. All right. So I'm trying to work through some mechanics now. Instead of suspending the rules first, I would like to hear from ballot representative. So if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ross Wiggins. I reside at 11985 McPherson Landing Road, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And I do represent Ballard Concrete for you here tonight. So I don't really know if you want my interpretation of what we're going to be doing there, or if you'd rather go ahead and hit me with some questions about our plans and our future there.
No, if it pleases council and mayor, I just really briefly kind of what
Sure.
you think the operations will be.
So we plan on employing around 20 people at that site with an estimated gross revenue of $1.5 to $2 million annually, which is a very low estimate. We should increase from there dramatically. We plan on using that site for 2 to 3 years, and then we will actually have outgrown it, and we plan on moving a little bit further, either north, northeast, or northwest, but staying inside Northport to facilitate where we feel like residential growth is going to be here in the next few years. So I've been in the industry for 17 years. I have dealt on numerous occasions with ADEM, EPA on what could have been problems but were solved before they got to that point. All you have to do is be very friendly to your neighbors, very caring, making sure that you keep your house just like they keep theirs, and that's what I did. Never had an ADEM or EPA fine or citation in 17 years of running ready-mix concrete plants. Besides that, we will be focusing 99% of the time on residential work, so we would adhere to residential construction hours from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. We wouldn't be disturbing any neighbors. And as Mr. Davis said, the footprint of the plant that we plan on erecting is small, and it will be located abutted to Dogan Steel on the southern end of the property. So we have a good bit of buffer to our west before you come to any residential areas, and we have a huge natural buffer with several acres and a wooded area to our north, which is really the only areas that we have neighbors.
I'll let council and or mayor kind of chime in. I know we're asking for a suspension of the rules. Mr. Wiggins, I'm probably not comfortable with suspending of the rules just to allow it first, because I think it needs a little bit more consideration. I know staff has done a good job in trying to figure out some truck routes and through the planning and zoning. How long are you guys, what's the time frame in terms of being in operation? Meaning, I know Ballard Concrete, but what's at that location, what's the time frame? How long are you planning on being there? And
so to be in operation, if we were to get the go-ahead, we would be able to ship concrete next week if we were given the go-ahead. Realistically, we can't be there more than 2.5 to 3 years in total, just due to the growth that we have planned for that facility and for the growth potential for customers and this area. We will need to buy a bigger property that is situated on the Parkway, on 82, that's a little bit more amenable to light construction, to manufacturing, and that won't have residential close in proximity at that point. Now, I'm sure, like everything else, as the city expands and as people grow out, then we'll once again be encroached. But this spot is merely to get our name out there, to get some revenue for the city of Northport and for us, and to stockpile a little bit of land buying money so that we can get from there to somewhere else.
I know you mentioned that buffer in between it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I guess that's 24th Avenue. That's to the west, no, to the north of you.
Yes, sir, that is right.
So that's residential. So they're going to see it every day, and that's probably one of the complaints that you've probably received just north of you in that area. A lot of houses are right there. Of course, we got Crestmont School just down the road from it. So that may be something that probably one of the. I hadn't looked at all through the emails. I've seen one or two that was sent just recently before 5 o'clock today. So that's one of the concerns that I did have. So I didn't know if members of council had anything they wanted to add to that before we decide to either suspend the rules or just address it through a first reading.
If I may, one of my former plants was a street over from Martin Luther King and directly abutted to Sonic Drive-In. I kept that facility where it did not bother our neighbors, and the volume there was probably 3 times what the volume of this plant would be.
Yes, sir.
So this is very manageable.
All right, council, I don't know if you had anything else. All right.
I don't believe any of us are against operating in the city as a business. We've now reached a quandary in the city where we have areas that are marked as manufacturing 1, and we discussed this in the Planning and Zoning Commission. They probably shouldn't be manufacturing 1 now. So you now are faced with, do you allow existing things to operate in those areas knowing that you've grown beyond that? I mean, I've only been here 5 years, and you've got both ends on both sides of the city that were probably the obvious terminus points of the city at one point on the east and the west side. So, and then when you take a look at have a hard time keeping the streets in decent shape with 2 wheels of traffic, and I think the patterns there. My problem is that any decision we make, it's a decision on what do we want that future land use in that area to be. How does this affect the existing residents and their quality of life, even for a couple of years? Third, we don't want to lose businesses, right? I think we're in kind of a quandary here, right? And as we spoke in planning and zoning, if you guys if we had a piece of property on 82 or something, it'd be perfect, right? We all agreed that I mean, if we all had a perfect globe to do everything we wanted to do, I'd win the lottery and I'd quit work and I wouldn't have to do this. But so I think that's part of the quandary, and I am not for suspending the rules because I think there is room for a further conversation. I understand you guys need to operate, but if we try and suspend the rules, let's say we suspend the rules and it passes, and then you vote on the thing and it fails, then we're really into trouble because that failure goes with that piece of property, and it's a year unless they change how they want the property platted. So now you've backed the process into a corner where even if we found a solution 3 months down the road, but because it was voted down here, we couldn't do anything for a year. So that's one reason if you try and go through this process fast, anytime a motion fails like that, it's going to take another year unless it drastically changes. So I'm really leery of trying to suspend the rules. Do I think there's a solution to be had? I don't know. I wish I knew. Okay, and we spent a long time on this on Planning and Zoning Commission, right? And I think the split evenly demonstrates that the Planning and Zoning Commission we have an M1 area that trucks can be in now, so we're kind of stuck. Then you also have the other issue of the residents there. So I think the split clearly identified the quagmire we're in on this particular.
So to address the residents' concern, I know that initially, the information I was given is that the concern was more about the timing of the notice letter that the resident received. That's where we originally were, and there might have been some environmental concerns in there. Are there any other concerns that I might could help address at this point?
I think we went over everything in planning and zoning, and everybody was properly notified. You guys did a great job with ADEM. You clearly defined the property you're going to be on, and just for council's sake, it's not the entire piece of property that goes all the way up the woods. You can't do it. They have a very limited ADEM permit. Current improved area, I guess, is the best way to say it.
Excuse me. They've got a limited defined footprint already that was approved
And that
by
was
ADEM.
actually considered in this trying to shape a planning and zoning, trying to shape a motion around that those clearly defined items. But I do believe that the split vote exactly, magnifies the problem that we have with old zoning areas. Folks that want to do business, and applaud you for the time we got folks unemployed, and Lord knows we got people that would rather not work than work. I just don't know how we get around this issue.
Who owns the property? Who owns the property?
Mr. Mike Ballard owns the property. I was brought in to facilitate selling to the public. That's what I've done for the last half of my career, is dispatching, management, and they felt like I would help them in that.
So after 3 or 4 years, you move on, the property goes, reverts back.
Yes, ma'am. 3 years is our maximum timeline to be there. We won't have the room that we need. We're not just going to stuff trucks in there just because we have it. Our entire plan is to use this as basically a springboard to get another piece of property wherever we can define the most growth, whether it be North 43, Northwest on 82, or Northeast on 69, somewhere in that range. But we really see the growth in this county happening here. So this is where we want to be. It just doesn't we have property in South Tuscaloosa where we can put the plant right now, but then we're just driving through to get to where we feel like our customers are and where our work is. And we'd rather be here to support this city and support where our customers are instead of just setting up shop somewhere else.
What are the residents, and we've heard some things that the residents have concerns about?
Well, like I said, the only thing I'm aware of is that, as I saw it, the resident who was furthest away from us geographically at the corner of Main and 24th had an issue with the timing of the first notice given out by, I think, planning and zoning. He didn't feel like he received sufficient notice to look into the issue. And I could be mistaken, but I also felt like he had some environmental concerns, which I was more than happy to address. I reached out to Ms. Ram and asked her to put me in contact with the individual, and I'm sure she did. I never heard from him. I really wanted to be able to speak with him and allay his concerns, but I think that he might rent that house out. I don't think he actually resides there. So I don't know what other concerns were brought up, but once again, if it's environmental, if it's noise pollution, if it is anything that I can help address, I'd be more than happy to. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Wiggins is right. I did send that resident his contact information. He said I did send that to him. Obviously, he has not gotten in touch with Mr. Wiggins. Also, one other point I'd like to make is the conditional use approval would run with the land and not be specific to Ballard Concrete. So if they were to sell to someone else, that conditional use approval is still on the table. It does
Yeah.
not go away.
Yep.
I don't know if it would work this way, but if it would alleviate some of the council's fears, we could put a 36-month timer on it.
Well, as we discussed in planning and zoning, conditional use cannot have a time. It goes
Yeah.
with the property.
As with
Yeah.
land.
And that's the problem, and we discussed that in planning and zoning. It actually would be great in some cases where you have an existing business where you go, I'm giving you 12 months to operate, but after that, we're gonna come lock the door. Unfortunately, that's not the way the land laws work here in Alabama, and that conditional use stays with it.
We want to do whatever we could to help.
I wish we had a piece of property we could swap with you.
Yeah. The thing with the conditional use is my just concern, because once you leave, it's with the property. It's going to be there. And of course, I know Councilman Roberts, he's on our planning and zoning, he's our rep, so I think the suspension of the rules is concerning to me, just because if we move too quickly on it, honestly, Mr. Wiggins, we're going to miss something with maybe getting some more information from staff. They've done a really good job in trying to figure out maybe truck routes and things of that nature, but I'm not comfortable suspending the rules to address it right then to go forward, just because you may have a citizen who may have some unique kind of, I guess, circumstances or even concerns that we could try to address before we suspend the rules and try to vote on a conditional use. And if you vote on the suspension of the rules and you get voted down, then it's just, you'd be wasting that process, in my opinion. But didn't know if we had any further comments or discussion. All right, so Ron, and thank you, Mr. Wiggins. I don't know if you had anything further or.
If there's anything further that I can do, I'm more than happy to do it to allay concerns, but past that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, Ron, and thank you, Julie. Thank you. Ron, so if we don't suspend the rules, obviously it's on the agenda for a first reading. So there again, it allows you to address it as you would normally would, correct?
Correct. Someone can offer for first reading, and you can also listen to the gentleman, I believe, is here tonight if you wish to.
I'm sorry, Ron.
You can also listen to the gentleman that's here tonight in opposition if he's present.
Come on up, and please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, it's Rush Shaban, and on the corner of 24th and Main. And, it's not just me that may be in opposition to this. It's actually several neighbors, and I took the time to speak with some of them who were very disconcerted over the fact that this may take place. And on standing on one of the neighbors' properties, I could see the plant, and I could see the stalls where the alleged product was to be stored. And to me, it's just kind of crazy, to see those houses and that plant right next to each other. It's just kind of crazy looking. There's no amount of dust that is considered safe, and promises can be made to mitigate dust, but all the dust cannot be completely mitigated. So that means that, the neighbors are going to have to live with some dust, and that some dust is not safe. Also, I did submit some pictures of some other plants that transport concrete product, and the whole road is just caked with concrete dust. It just looks pitiful. I also spoke with a representative from the Building and Planning Department in Tuscaloosa, and there is some, kind of bizarre zoning going on, where you have, some industrial, right next to a house. It looks strange because it is strange, and he acknowledged that, and he said that he has plan going forward. It's called Framework Tuscaloosa. And that is acknowledging that mistakes were made in the past. And some decisions of the past may not be good for the present. So they're working to, not just accept what the zoning was, like 20, 30 years ago, but they're working to improve it and modernize it. And I think that's something we can do here in the city of Northport. And I think that this is a good place to start with. I think even if this potential case moves, you still have the issue of the use of land. But instead of having someone stay here with a potentially hazardous type of industry and a very unaesthetic type of industry, you might, if he were to move now, get another resident that would stay a lot longer and be much more healthier by the community. So it's not just me who's potentially concerned. It's actually several neighbors I talked to. Several neighbors said they had children with asthma. And they're actually closer to the facility than I was. I asked them if they were notified, and they said no, they weren't. So, so myself being further distance, I was notified, but they were not. I think that's kind of strange too, and that raises some procedural concerns that I have, which are at issue in today, because I think had they more time, then they would have been here today. The building and planning date was on the May 12th. Today's May 18th. That means there's only 3 business days, that were in between. So I just don't think that's enough time to make a sufficient informed, response to this proposal.
Thank you. I didn't know if there was anything further. We were going to, and I appreciate you coming up to speak as a.
I appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir. Any further comments that you would have?
So just my, objection at this point in time is the health concerns for the community, and the aesthetics of the situation. That's a beautiful spot. A lot of things can be done with it. And I think, after all these years and all the money that they may have made, to shove this, down the community's throats is selfish and a little bit stingy.
Any further?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I appreciate the discussion with staff and citizens, of course. So I think that there's a general consensus among council that suspending the rules would not be something that we will be looking to address, with the exception of the first reading. Wouldn't that? Yeah, I just can't look to suspend the rules just to immediately consider it, just because you only got a short time frame of looking at it, and staff's done a good job in getting the information that we've asked. I think it's just we need a little bit more time to address it as a full body of council, obviously, and getting some more information. So I just could not. I'm not comfortable with suspending the rules, Ron, to do that. So I will offer it up for a first reading.
And I will say to Mr. Wiggins, I personally don't have any issues myself. So I know the reputation of your company.
Yeah.
And I know how y'all work and how you do things. So I know that you have the best interest of everyone that's around you in your heart. So I appreciate you coming tonight. And for me, I don't have any issues.
All right. I will offer it up for a first reading. So, Ms. Ram, I didn't know if you had anything further to add.
The only other comment I would have is when at the planning commission level, that is when we send adjoining property owner notification, and we do that for every case. And our normal procedure is that the next council meeting following the planning commission meetings, we do put those appropriate agenda items on the council agenda for first readings. That's our standard procedure.
All right, Ron, so even this public hearing, if we would have suspended the rules, you'd have had to have a public hearing, correct? Okay, so since we didn't suspend it, we can still offer it up for a first reading, and then we would move forward typically like we would in our normal process. Okay. I think that's the conversation Mr. McCullum and I were having while you're speaking, Ms. Ram. I apologize. We just wanted to make sure that we didn't move out of step on that one. So, again, I don't think council's going to go with suspension of the rules, Mr. Wiggins. Again, we understand the business that your company brings to the city and the reputation, although I think the consensus after discussions that you hear tonight, we're not comfortable with suspending the rules, but I will offer it up for a first reading just to get full body back in council session, and then have staff kind of get some more information if there are other issues with citizens and other issues that we may not be thinking about. That gives us a little bit more time to address it and vote on it accordingly. So that'll be next council meeting. All right, so for the record, I will offer that up for a first reading to allow typical staff processes and getting more information regarding this so we can vote on it as a full council next council meeting. So that's only offered up by me for a first reading only. All right, moving forward, we have a second item. It's a first reading of a rezoning of 3.07 acres from RS3 and AG to RS3 and C3 located on Robert Cardinal Airport Road. Ms. Ram.
Yes, our Brilliant Coal Company comes with this request. Specifically, the request is to rezone lots 1, 2, and 3 of the proposed Airport Road subdivision to C3, and then lots 4 and 5 of the same subdivision to RS3. The request does meet all necessary acreage requirements. Staff did receive one comment from an adjoining property owner that was not in support of the rezoning request. However, the Planning Commission does send this up with a favorable recommendation.
Would also like to state that when it was first presented, there was conditional use for office warehouse. After discussion, we did not want office warehouse in C3 anymore. We moved that out to C6. There's also some confusion on exactly what an office warehouse is, and this is just so we can be consistent moving forward. We're not talking about a space in which you do retail in the front, then you have items in a warehouse for resale. The idea was like a tradesman's shop where he could have his parts, his surplus items, so it's not really we think, and we discussed this, and the city needs to take a look at the definition, but office warehouse, it was not correct for the terminology. C3, these are going to be like a contractor space or something like that, which more people need. It might even be a flex space, which is becoming more popular as they try and reuse this stuff. So we actually took that out of the original submission, Julie, and I don't know how we did that, but we did. But this is not, despite what everybody may hear, this is not an office warehouse. This is basically like a contractor storefront with space for his trade or something like that.
Staff is going to work on the definition and bring that back to the Planning Commission and then on to City Council.
Yeah, and it's rather unusual to have residential next to an airport anyway. Eventually, that would be all commercial around the airport. Maybe if we flew something in other than cargo planes or football games. Just saying.
All right.
Offer it up for read. I just wanted to clarify in case somebody comes back about that item.
Did you want to also put in that offer? Did you want to just acquire the airport when Tuscaloosa does their improvements? And is that what you want to do too?
Can I do that the day I leave?
Hey. You say you want to annex the airport once they get it done. All right, that was offered up by Councilman Roberts on that first reading, rezoning that acreage on Robert Cardinal Airport Road. Third item is a first reading amendment to the design review standards pertaining to sidewalks. Ms. Ram?
Yes, sir. This proposed amendment will create the Sidewalk Trust Fund or Fee in Lieu of Sidewalks program. The text that you were given in your packet does contain the guidelines that will determine when a developer can petition the Planning Commission to participate in this fund. The fees will be determined by the city engineer and will be based on the total cost of sidewalk installation. And this does come with a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission.
All right, is there a member of council wanted to offer this up for a first reading?
I will.
All right.
Time we did it.
That is offered up by Councilman Roberts. 8B1 is a resolution authorizing our city administrator's office to enter into our annual contract with Vertiv Corporation. Again, this is out of our PD. Again, this is just an annual contract services, and this is just a PO requisition for any associated costs. I'll make a motion to approve that resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Roberts. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. McCullum.
Councilman Roberts.
Yes.
President Logan.
Yes.
Councilman Hogg.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Second item is a resolution authorizing a 1992 military truck as surplus and authorizing the proper disposal. Again, this is out of PD. Again, if you hadn't seen it, it is a military truck. There's no getting around it. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution declaring this vehicle as surplus and authorizing its proper disposal. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hogg. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. McCullum.
Councilman Roberts.
Yes.
President Logan.
Yes.
Councilman Hogg.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Third item is a resolution adopting our Northport Municipal Water Pollution Prevention Report. Mr. Webb.
Yes, President Logan, Mayor, members of council. Every year, ADM requires municipalities with wastewater systems to complete a municipal water pollution prevention annual report. This is a report of our entire wastewater system, including the collection lines, pump stations, and the treatment plant. In this report is all the operational financial data, along with any plans we have to address any deficiencies noted throughout the year. For you tonight is a resolution formally acknowledging that the council has received, reviewed, and approved the municipal water pollution prevention report.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. I'll make a motion to approve that resolution adopting the annual municipal water pollution prevention report. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hogg. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. McCullum.
Councilman Roberts.
Yes.
President Logan.
Yes.
Councilman Hogg.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item C, consent agenda. There are 9 items. They range from minutes of the previous meeting, bill listings, travel and training, and PO through our respective utility departments. Again, these are budgeted items for water and wastewater treatment operations. Again, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed? That's a motion by Councilman Roberts. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hogg. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. McCullum.
Councilman Roberts.
Yes.
President Logan.
Yes.
Councilman Hogg.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item 9, reports of special committees to council. If any member of council wanted to give a report from their committee or the mayor's office.
Mr. President, Darren and I have been talking about we've been monitoring the budget closely. We will be doing a budget revision. I would like to say that the April numbers actually have not signaled any dire warning yet. The problem is that that's from 30 to 60 days ago from tax collections. So I believe the May numbers come out the 20th, Darren? That's the deadline for them. So I think as we get through the May numbers, take a look at any trends and trends and analysis on what's going on with revenue. Are we going to see a dip or whatever? But I think it would be prudent to do a budget revision and just try and stay ahead of the curve.
Do you want to, Councilman, and thank you for the report for finance. So the budget revision, once you and Darren kind of look at it on the 20th, maybe next June meeting, or?
It would probably, and depending on what May's numbers do, right? We may need to react, or we may need to, just slightly alter what's going on. But I think that after we see the May numbers, we'll be in a little better position. Revenue is actually running okay right now. I guess would be the best way to say that. The city has not had to lay off any employees or reduce pay like a lot of other businesses have. We're still trying to help our community, some of our nonprofits and things, but our revenue is delayed so much from when reality is, at times we've got to be a little careful. So maybe in June have a formal budget review based on what happens in May. Hopefully the tax board might have some indications too. I know that the county had said they had drop.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further reports from our respective committees, or if the mayor wanted to report from her respective committee, which is all of them?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Item 10, public hearings. We have none on the agenda. Item 11, city administrator's business. Mr. McCullum.
Yes, Mr. President, I had one item I want to bring up. We at the administrative committee last week, we discussed the creation of, or the appointment of an assistant administrator position, and that's just simply, it's not creating a new position, it's not a new hire, it's a designation by the administrator of an assistant, when in his absence, that the other department heads would have the ability to go to a go-to person to help with carrying out the day-to-day business of the city. At some point we may would request that the council take some formal action on it. This is me telling you that this is what I plan on doing unless there be some objection.
I think it's prudent to always have a backup plan for almost anything, especially when Juanita says that you can't leave the beach.
But anyway, if there's any questions, I feel, we're not talking about a new hire here. We're simply talking about a designation of a current employee that will fulfill a dual role and help facilitate the day-to-day operation.
Will that be something you bring back to council for a vote, or is that?
Well, we may not need to. It's, I get an interpretation. I would hopefully after maybe some further discussion, we may want to formalize it with some designated duties, et cetera.
All right, will you do that for me, Hardy? Would you get, I guess, the interpretation internal and then kind of bring it back? So I guess as a full body, I would feel more comfortable that we're just addressing it as a full body.
Yes, Mr. President.
All right, any further business on the city administrator's office?
We continue to work on getting our, I see Russ here, he's smiling back there. We're trying to get our road plan put together, our resurfacing, trying to finalize, and I hope we're getting closer to finalizing the redo of the project up in Northwood Lake where we've had some subsidence and some issues with there, and TTL's working on that project, but we're continuing to work, trying to pull together, and certainly the budget will dictate how much paving that we can put down, but we're at the point of meeting with the contractors to get that process started. We'll be back to you with numbers.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any further business, Mr. McCullum?
I think that's it.
Item 12, departmental business. We have none on the agenda. Item 13 is public comment. We have no citizens who have signed to speak. Item 14, mayor and council members' business. I'll start with Mayor Aaron.
I don't have anything, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. District 1, Councilman Roberts.
Out of the Planning and Zoning Commission, when we discussed the particulars with the Ballard property, I believe the city owes it to itself to take a look at those M1 areas and decide whether or not, in fact, they should still be there. I believe that we owe it to the businesses that are there to find a plan that can work, but eventually down the road, is light manufacturing in those areas appropriate now that the city has outgrown that? And perhaps may want to consider talking with the businesses to find a zoning that we can change to that would still allow people to operate. We may have to grandfather some businesses in or whatever, but I think if you look at the future, M1 in those areas is not what we long-term would want to do. And I would, Hardy, I think we ought to get some folks taking a look at how we can do that. And that's on both sides of the city, quite frankly, because the other M1 area on the east side doesn't have any better access than
It's more about
the
the access.
and that is the case too. If there was better access in some cases, we wouldn't have half these conversations. But short of plowing down houses and building double-wide boulevards, have to decide on different zoning.
All right, thank you. Any further business, Councilman? District 2, again, thank you to staff internally at City Hall. They just keep doing a good job in terms of working under the governor's requirements for opening up our business in terms of City Hall, and of course the staff external with our public works and utilities and police and fire. They're just doing a really good job of keeping the ball rolling. So I am so appreciative of the work that they're doing to stay safe. And again, our court system's running pretty good. I got a court employee back there, so thank you. I saw it on YouTube. I saw the new protocol on YouTube today, so thank you. Again, just thank you to staff. Everybody's doing a really good job staying safe and opening up our respective businesses back to the public in a way that's safe and healthy for everybody. I do know that Mr. McCullum and I are working on that MLK project, and I appreciate everybody and staff working early in late April and again early May. So we're to the point where I think there's some different elements of the project where we can maybe create some partnerships and maybe move the project along quicker. I know that our staff at BKI is working to try to get all the environmental documentation process done to be submitted by the end of the month, and we can ask for some expedited approvals that will put us on a little bit faster track. So I'm appreciative of that process for MLK. So that last big hurdle's been jumped. And that's all the business I have under my district. District 5, Pro Tem Hogg.
No business tonight.
Thank you. Item 15 is adjournment. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Hogg. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you.